We all know that Ramadan is a blessed month, an opportunity to better ourselves. But how do we go about making the most of it?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
There is a wealth of knowledge out there, if you know where to look. So we've brought together advice and answers in this easy-to-digest program, and links to the full material are available in the description below. So let's dive straight into a segment from the MTA series, Islamic Jurisprudence, to hear about the purpose of fasting during Ramadan.
And the purpose of fasting is so that you may become righteous. So the objective of fasting is righteousness. And the very word, you mentioned the holy month of Ramadan, and it comes from the root word of Ramada, which means scorching heat. And people, have explored this deeper meaning of Ramadan and fasting from this very root word as well. And it's that this burns away our base desires. It's not just simply abstaining from food and drink, but when one fasts, it actually, you increase in your remembrance of Allah the Almighty during that time as well. You increase your other good deeds as well during fasting. So it's a month in which we focus all our efforts and energies towards the remembrance of God. It's actually a great blessing for us to experience this within our lifetime. The Promised Messiah ﷺ expounds on this subject, and one really interesting insight he gives into fasting, that he says that where salat purifies the soul, fasting sharpens the faculties of vision and revelation and dreams. So both, like I said, Islam gives us both aspects and various means of worshipping Allah the Almighty.
The Promised Messiah Islam's insight has since been touched upon by scientists and scholars, including Mark Matson, a professor at Johns Hopkins University, who gave a TEDx talk on why fasting bolsters brain power.
Okay, why does fasting bolster brain power? Fasting is a challenge to your brain, and your brain responds to that challenge of not having food by activating adaptive stress response pathways that help your brain cope with stress and resist disease. Does this make sense in evolutionary terms? When anything we talk about in biology, we have to always ask the question, why is it that way? If you're hungry and haven't found food, you better figure out how to find food. You don't want your brain to shut down if you're hungry. So we're finding when we start looking at what are the neurochemical changes in the brain with fasting, they're very similar to exercise.
Now that we've increased our brain power, how can we use it to become closer to God? A child asked this question in a mulaqat with Huzoor.
प्यारा हुजूर, मेरा सवाल है कि मैं कराशी पढ़ने के अलावा और नमाज पढ़ने के अलावा कैसे अल्लाह के करीब आ सकता हूँ?
नमाज में दुआएं किया करो कि अल्लाह ताला तुम्हें अपना कुर्ब दे, अपने करीब लेके आए, ठीक है? और अच्छी अच्छी बातें किया करो, किसी को गाली नहीं देनी, किसी को बुरा नहीं कहना, बच्चों से लड़ाई नहीं करनी, अम्मा अब्बा के कहना मानना है, बातें माननी है, उनको इज़्ज़त देनी है, उनकी रिस्पेक्ट करनी है, अपने टीचर्स से भी अच्छा सलूक करना है, जो क्लास फेलो हैं उनसे भी अच्छी बातें करनी है, लड़ाई नहीं करनी, उनको बताना है कि मैं अहमदी मुसलमान हूँ और मैं अच्छी अच्छी बातें करता हूँ, मैं गंदी बातें नहीं करता, मैं गंदी फिल्में नहीं देखता, मैं गंदे प्रोग्राम नहीं देखता हैं, और हर वक्त इंटरनेट या आईपैड पे बैठ के या टैबलेट पे बैठ के या सेल फ़ोन पे बैठ के या टेलीविज़न पे बैठ के फजूल किस्म के प्रोग्राम नहीं देखता, ठीक है? अपना वक्त ज़ाया नहीं करता, मैं ग्राउंड में जाके आउटडोर गेम भी खेलता हूँ। तो ये चीज़ें जो है ना तुम्हें अच्छे इंसान बनाएंगी। जब तुम अच्छा इंसान बनाएंगी तो तुम अल्लाह ताला के करीब भी हो जाओगे।
Words of advice we can all encompass in our day-to-day lives. Last year, in his Friday sermon on Ramadan, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih V, Ayyadahu Ta'ala bin Nasr al-Aziz, said that while the opportunity has been provided, it is up to us to take advantage of it.
रमज़ान के महीने में जब नेकियों का माहौल बना है, दर्स व तदरीस का सिलसिला भी शुरू हुआ है, तो मेरी हदायत और अहकामात को देखो, गौर करो, सुनो और इन पर अमल करो। अपने ईमानों का जायज़ा लो कि कितने मजबूत ईमान हैं तुम्हारे। کسی مشکل میں پڑنے پر، ابتلا آنے پر ایمان متزلزل تو نہیں ہو رہے؟ بہرحال یہ ایک ایسا مضمون ہے جس میں قدم بندے نہیں پہلے اٹھانا ہے، اور جب اس کی انتہا ہوتی ہے تو پھر اللہ تعالیٰ کی رحمت اور شفقت جوش میں آتی ہے، بس اس کا فضل جوش میں آتا ہے۔ بس اس بات کو سمجھنا ہمارے لیے بہت ضروری ہے۔
Man must take the first step. So what steps are you taking to improve yourself this Ramadan?
Usually, in on the average day, I'll probably be listening to the radio or just news or what's going on in the worldly affairs, essentially. And now I find myself more inclined to listen to things like Dars by Imam Saab, previous Friday sermons from beloved Huzoor, and just things that are more religiously inclined rather than to worldly or secular things.
Maybe I'd spend that time on the train reading portions of the Holy Quran rather than watching Netflix. That's one thing that I'll change this time round. I'll be going this month, inshallah, without watching Netflix at all. That's the mission that I've set myself. No Netflix, no Prime, no Disney Plus or whatever it is. That's the challenge I've set to myself, to have less screen time in this month.
What I like to do, firstly, is commit myself to learning a portion of the Holy Quran or even just a surah. So what I normally do is I'll pick a surah and I'll split it over the 30 days and try and memorize it. And obviously I'll go through the translation as well, just so I understand what I'm reading. And that I think works really well, because usually it's one of those things that we tend to put off and think, okay, I'll learn it later on. But you never get a chance.
Being more efficient with time, getting things done, and obviously being far more reflective and more aware of my own actions and my thoughts and all of my deeds, really. Just thinking, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Is it meaningful? Is it attaining the pleasure of Allah? Or is it just being lazy, being in the moment, and something that's more unnecessary? So just more efficient, more focused, and more on the goal of trying to seek the pleasure of Allah more than anything else.
Coming back around to fasting itself, a question every parent must face is, at what age should a person start fasting? Huzoor Akhtas provided a detailed answer to this question in his Friday sermon on the 3rd of June 2016.
عمر کا سوال، کس عمر میں روزہ رکھنا چاہیے، کئی بچے بھی پوچھتے ہیں، بڑے بھی پوچھتے ہیں۔ حضرت مسلم موعود رضی اللہ عنہ فرماتے ہیں کہ یہ امر یاد رکھنا چاہیے کہ شریعت نے چھوٹی عمر کے بچوں کو روزہ رکھنے سے منع کیا، لیکن بلوغت کے قریب انہیں کچھ روزے رکھنے کی مشق ضرور کرانی چاہیے۔ آپ فرماتے ہیں کہ مجھے جہاں تک یاد ہے حضرت مسیح موعود علیہ السلام نے مجھے پہلا روزہ رکھنے کی اجازت 12 یا 13 سال کی عمر میں دی تھی، لیکن بعض بیوقوف 6-7 سال کے بچوں سے روزے رکھواتے ہیں اور سمجھتے ہیں کہ ہمیں اس کا ثواب ہوگا۔ یہ ثواب کا کام نہیں بلکہ ظلم ہے، کیونکہ یہ عمر نشو و نما کی ہوتی ہے۔ ہاں، ایک عمر وہ ہوتی ہے کہ بلوغت کے دن قریب ہوتے ہیں اور روزہ فرض ہونے والا ہی ہوتا ہے، اس وقت ان کو روزوں کی ضرور مشق کرانی چاہیے۔ حضرت مسیح موعود علیہ السلام کی اجازت اور سنت کو اگر دیکھا جائے تو 12-13 سال کے قریب کچھ مشق کرانی چاہیے اور ہر سال چند روزے رکھوانے چاہیے، یہاں تک کہ 18 سال کی عمر ہو جائے، جو میرے نزدیک روزہ کی بلوغت کی عمر ہے۔ مجھے پہلے سال صرف ایک روزہ رکھنے کی حضرت مسیح موعود علیہ السلام نے اجازت دی تھی۔ جب روزے کی اجازت دلوائی تھی 12-13 سال میں تو صرف ایک روزہ رکھوایا تھا۔ اس عمر میں تو صرف شوق ہوتا ہے، اس شوق کی وجہ سے بچے زیادہ روزے رکھنا چاہتے ہیں، مگر یہ ماں باپ کا کام ہے کہ انہیں روکیں۔ پھر ایک عمر ایسی ہوتی ہے کہ اس میں چاہیے کہ بچوں کو جرأت دلائیں کہ وہ کچھ روزے ضرور رکھیں۔ بچپن میں ماں باپ کا کام ہے روکیں، زیادہ نہ رکھنے دیں، پھر جب جوانی کی عمر آ رہی ہے تو پھر جرأت دلائیں اور ان سے روزے رکھوائیں، اور ساتھ ہی یہ بھی دیکھتے رہیں کہ وہ زیادہ نہ رکھیں، اور دیکھنے والوں کو بھی اس پر اعتراض نہ کرنا چاہیے کہ اس سارے روزے کیوں نہیں رکھتا، کیونکہ اگر بچہ اس عمر میں سارے روزے رکھے گا تو آئندہ نہیں رکھ سکے گا۔ اسی طرح بعض بچے خلقی لحاظ سے کمزور ہوتے ہیں۔ میں نے دیکھا ہے کہ بعض لوگ اپنے بچوں کو میرے پاس ملاقات کے لیے لاتے ہیں اور بتاتے ہیں کہ اس کی عمر 15 سال ہے، حالانکہ وہ دیکھنے میں 7-8 سال کے معلوم ہوتے ہیں۔ اکثر یہ بھی ہوتا ہے، میرے پاس بھی ایسے آتے ہیں۔ فرمایا کہ میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ ایسے بچے روزے کے لیے شاید 21 سال کی عمر میں بالغ ہوں، इसके मुकाबले में एक मजबूत बच्चा गालबन 15 साल की उम्र में ही 18 साल के बराबर हो सकता है। लेकिन अगर वो मेरे इन अल्फाज को ही पकड़ कर बैठ जाए कि रोज़े की बलूगत की उम्र 18 साल है, तो ना वो मुझ पर जुल्म करेगा, ना खुदा ताला पर, बल्कि अपनी जान पर आप जुल्म करेगा। इसी तरह अगर कोई छोटी उम्र का बच्चा पूरे रोज़े ना रखे और लोग इस पर तान करें, तो वो अपनी जान पर जुल्म करेंगे, तान करने वाले भी।
So children should not fast, and in fact should be actively discouraged from fasting more than a few days of the month. But what about adults? Are there times when you shouldn't fast? Let's go back to Islamic jurisprudence.
In terms of traveling as well as illness, both these instructions apply. And we even find in the example of the Holy Prophet ﷺ's lifetime, and even in the Promised Messiah ﷺ as well, that in fact some people had fasted whilst they were traveling.
Right.
And when they reached, for instance, there's an example in the lifetime of the Promised Messiah ﷺ, that a companion reached Qadian, and the Promised Messiah ﷺ found out that he was fasting.
Right.
And even though it was, I believe, the time of the Asr prayer, so it was very close to the fast being complete, but yet the Promised Messiah ﷺ told him to open his fast, because the blessings actually lie in adhering to the instructions of Allah the Almighty, and not by showing our own strength. The fact that we are able to fast is because of the opportunity that we have from Allah the Almighty.
Indeed, indeed.
In light of the guidance of our Khulafa, it is also good here to mention that for some people, traveling is a part of their work. They travel as a part of work. For instance, if you're a pilot or a train, you conduct a train, then in these instances you will not be considered as traveling, because that is something you do as a routine. So we are not talking about routine journeys. For instance, you go from here to work in central London, that wouldn't be a journey.
So it's when a disease or the travel takes you out of your natural state.
Yes.
Or even your niyat, your intention. When you go on a journey, you plan for it. You think that, oh, I'll buy the ticket, and this is a one time. It doesn't happen regularly, but I need to go to a place, another city, for an errand or something, and it will be in your mind that this is a journey. So when that intention comes up in your mind, you should consider it as a journey and do not fast on that day. Rather enjoy the ease which God Almighty creates for you that day.
One of the best ways to achieve a goal is to set attainable objectives, and self-improvement is no different. Let's hear from our very own Mu'tamim Tarbiyat on some of his objectives this Ramadan.
So for example, this year, what I'm trying to do is I'm not actually trying to read Tarawiyah, I'm trying to read Tahajjud. They say it takes 30 days to build a habit or get a habit breeded into you. So my focus this year is to make sure that I read Tahajjud every single morning, to get to a point that after Ramadan I continue to read Tahajjud as well. Usually I listen to like podcasts, or I watch Gary Neville on YouTube. Gary Neville, what a legend. But during Ramadan I tried to kind of make a conscious effort where I actually try to listen to Tilawat. I'm also trying to learn a few more surahs, and what I've learned is what works for me is listening to them over and over and over and over again. So what I do is I actually have them playing throughout my journey. It's only about a 40-minute journey, but it helps, and hopefully inshallah I'll be able to kind of learn a few more this year. What I've tried to kind of focus on, I suppose, in the last 3 years, and it has been a challenge, is I should be a bit more open about who I am at work. A lot of my colleagues now know that I am a Muslim. They knew I was before, but I was never really talking about it openly. But they know what my kind of focus is now. And before I used to kind of try and sneak away and try and find somewhere to read namaz, but now I openly say, look, I have to go pray. Is there anywhere that I can go and pray? And what I found actually in the last 3 years, I suppose, is the confidence that I've built in to have these conversations with my colleagues is they're all for it. They absolutely love it. It's an amazing story that for the past 7-8 years, where I've been very nervous to ask to work from home on Fridays because I want to attend Jummah. And it's been a tough battle. I've been trying to build up the courage to ask. I always thought I'd get judged on it or whatever it might be. But 3 years ago, I asked my boss, said, listen, I go to pray for Jummah, and I want to see if I can maybe, come in early or leave early or potentially just have a longer lunch break. He just goes to me, just work from home. Just like that. And I was the only person that he said that to. So for me, it shows, when you have that faith and when you can overcome the battle of nerves, or maybe kind of, the judgment that you think may come with it, God's got your back, man, 100%. And now I'm living a really kind of cool life with religion and work hand in hand.
So that brings us to the end of this episode. We've heard a lot of advice, facts, and what some of you are doing to better yourselves this Ramadan. You can find links to all the content, as well as the MKA and Salat apps, in the description below, and be sure to like and share this video. We leave you with a few answers to the important question: what do you have for Sehri? And we'll be back with another episode next week, inshallah.
What we normally do is we wake up in the morning, we have a massive meal, and then we just we're kind of sloths for the rest of the day because you've just had a load of meal. Then, for iftari, you have a massive meal, you go to sleep. What happens at the end of the 30 days is you put on a lot more weight than you thought you were going to lose. So over the last kind of few years, what I've tried to do is have a very light Sehri. So all I have is Weetabix in the morning, and that's it, and a couple of glasses of water. And then this year for iftari, I'm going to try and have a light iftari. I'm going to hopefully try and see if I can, try to actually struggle.
I would have something quite light, so that might be cereal, it might be milk, it might be fruit or some huzoor, because I can't eat a lot in the morning, so it's generally quite a light snack for Sehri, enabling me to sleep after as well.
I don't really have too much. I try not to overeat at Sehri. This morning I had an apple and a couple of dates and a lot of water. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much what I'll eat. I might have a slice of toast here and there, but I won't be eating eggs, I won't be eating parathe, and I won't be eating anything too heavy. Pretty much a piece of fruit and a lot of water to try and get me through the day.
I've stopped the parathes, and mostly it's just a very simple bread and yogurt. Actually, last year someone asked Huzoor Anwar what he eats for iftari and Sehri, and Huzoor explained that whatever is given for iftari or whatever salan is made, then he also eats that for Sehri as well. So I've tried to just keep the food simpler, and the actual reason behind this that Huzoor stated was that there needs to be some sort of effort, some sort of struggle, some sort of striving during the month of Ramadan. So we should feel that we're making some sort of effort, and this actually helps us in our spirituality, because the promised Messiah has mentioned that when you give up the physical food, the spiritual food increases as well. So that's why it's very important to have some sort of effort. You should feel a little bit that you are fasting.